Aid Workers Unfiltered by the KALU Institute.
Episode 2. How to make sure people with disabilities are given a voice in our programming.
Is that what I am to you now? Poor Stephen Strange, charity case.
Impairments, disabilities, handicaps. We hear these words but don't always understand the reality beyond them. Especially in our programming, people with disabilities are often forgotten or even sometimes just used to justify being inclusive. Today, we're gonna hear from Zeina and Nike, inclusion specialists. In their field of work, the first thing is often to fight stereotypes and cliches.
There are a number of misconceptions about persons with disabilities. For example, having a disability is an inability. Persons with disabilities do not have feelings like any other person. Bones of persons with albinism, for example, as a disability, can be used for rituals to make one rich. Persons with disabilities cannot contribute to socioeconomic development in a community and cannot earn a decent living by themselves.
There is a very common mistake. People tend to judge. You look at someone with disability and you immediately judge that he can do this kind of thing and he can't do this kind of thing. And if he did, oh wow, he's a hero because he did it. The first thing that we learn when you enter the world of disability is don't judge. Just like persons without disability, if you want to know if they can or can't do a certain activity, just ask.
In most NGOs, we still have a long way to go. Most of the time, only projects that specifically work on handicaps take into account people with disabilities. And even when they do, they sometimes don't include them the right way.
Now, when you talk about persons with disability, you talk about inclusion, and that concept itself is we require raising awareness to not just the community, but also to the humanitarian workers. They think that if they got a couple of persons with disability just to be involved in whatever during the project, then that would be enough for the project to be inclusive. We did this project for Paralympic and we requested a list of PWD's participation from a certain entity, and we got a list of people with disability, like a random list, people who are not even interested in sport.
People can be impaired, but the handicap arises when the system is not providing these people with solutions or means so that they can access services and can fully see their rights respected. Unfortunately, in most countries, it is still a challenge, even to access basic services, and not only because of the lack of infrastructures.
The personnel at the hospital do not have skills, for instance, sign language interpretations. Hence, they rely on an assistant who accompanies the person with disabilities. And in a way, this violates their right to privacy. For instance, if they're talking about sensitive issues like HIV status, I feel that solutions to this kind of challenges could be social behavior change strategy to change the attitude and mentality of able people towards persons with disabilities.
In our projects, we also tend to focus on certain types of disability, like the visible or physical ones, hence forgetting about people with mental impairments, for example. In many countries, impairments are still stigmatized, making it hard sometimes to identify possible beneficiaries.
Sometimes you go to a certain location and it's new and you think that, oh, I don't see like people with disability in the street. So I don't think that they exist here in this area or they are very minimal. This is wrong because there's also people who don't have a visible disability and also people who have severe disability and cannot leave their houses. We had this project for cash support for people with severe disability. And I remember that when we went there, you wouldn't see them in schools or participating in social events. They couldn't come to us to really create or develop this project together. We went to them and we did house visits and we talked and interviewed with the persons with severe disability in their houses to really have their participation and voices heard. And that is also necessary because some people think if you're doing a project for them, okay, we're supporting them with cash, that's enough. Well, it's not. They need to be involved, and they need to be actively involved and heard, and their input should be taken into consideration just like any other input from a person without disability.
We're slowly trying to shift from a charity approach to an inclusive and participative one. People don't need us to assist them. They need to be given the means to bridge the gap and be fully part of society as any citizen.
The persons with disabilities should also be able to compete and contest for leadership positions like everyone else on merit. Because most of the times we say nothing for us without us. So there should be a self-representation, especially in forums that will be making decisions that affect persons with disabilities.
Thanks a lot to Zeina and Nike for sharing their experiences. And stay tuned, more episodes coming soon.